man, as I just told him off air, one of my biggest inspirations in sports media. Let's get right into it. Coach and Company on Stadium,
Yep.
Behind the Turnbuckle Studios on YouTube, the coach and the bro. Obviously, I'm wearing the PFL hat for a reason. He represents PFL and he's on the PGA Tour.
Yep.
I don't think Coachman, the coach, did I get them all? Did I
You,
miss
you
any?
you got them all except the last word, which is our pro wrestling show, which is on Stadium as well, and PFL will have a lot of content on Stadium, the network as well too, which is on Amazon Direct TV. So you got all of them. But I tell you what, I love hearing that because we're at a point now, Mike, that we've got to be able to cross promote, and especially with the PFL, we're just in a new time, and I'm excited to have this new role. And obviously, to talk to somebody who's a big fan and who's very good like yourself.
Well, thank you. Obviously, you've had a long media career. How did
Yep.
you land in MMA? Because I know how I got started, but and what
Yeah.
appealed to you the most about the PFL?
So I hate boxes, and one of my biggest issues when I went from WWE to ESPN back in 2008 was there were several executives like, he's a wrestling guy, he can't do this. I've always prided myself on being, to me, if you're going to be at the highest level, Mike, you've got to be an expert on everything. You don't got to know every player, every fighter, whatever. So during my 10-year ESPN career, the last three, people may forget I was the MMA guy for ESPN. When Conor McGregor was becoming who he was, I was the one that was at the fights doing the reporting for ESPN when he knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. So I've been doing MMA. And also remember, when I was in the WWE, we had a lot of MMA guys. We had Brock Lesnar, we had Shelton Benjamin, we had CM Punk, a lot of guys that had that wrestling background that wanted to get into Bobby Lashley as well, who I've actually wrestled against. So I've always enjoyed MMA, but I've always saw the PFL as kind of a diamond in the rough. And I think they've had a good start. But if I'm being candid, we needed to make some changes. And we needed to bring in some people like myself who understand promotion, understand how to build fighters, how to make stars, but you're not going to do it overnight as well. So I think that Don and Pete have done a good job of bringing in some really good people, including myself. And we're going to be changing a lot, but also we're going to be focused on what we do. What we can't get into is get caught up in fighting with Dana White or the UFC. There's room for everybody, and we're going to do things differently, do it entertaining. But I think that I'm super excited about my new role here and what it could turn into down the road.
Not only your new role, but a new format for the
Yep.
PFL. I bought in on the regular season, the point system. I thought, as someone who came from covering other sports, that
Yep.
maybe this could work. But in MMA, people just want to see a winner and a loser, and you're only as good as your last fight. With the PFL moving to a world tournament format this year, one shot is the mantra that
Yep.
we're going with. What do you feel is most intriguing about this change, and how do you feel fans will adapt to it?
So fans adapt to everything. I mean, and this is always the thing I've always told my own team, but also in the meetings we have with the PFL. Don't worry about the fan base. Let's worry about, are we making it entertaining for the fan base? Because one thing that I loved about the old format was, and I didn't go on the road. I did all the betting stuff with Ian Parker. This year, I will be at every event. And I wanted to go into the locker room and say, hey, guys, you have a chance not only to improve your own brand, but go out there and knock somebody out, get the bonus points, all that kind of stuff. And I felt like a lot of the fighters wouldn't do that because it's not in their DNA. Some it is, and that's why you see some super exciting fighters. The more I've kind of sunk my teeth into this, and I say it all, I've, my Coach's Corner segment we have twice a week, I say it a lot, that there is no safety net. There is no, hey, I had a good fight, and I can have my second fight in 3 months and still get into the playoffs. There no longer is that, and there's some excitement in that you've got to come out ready to go. And if last year they weren't ready to go, had kind of a slow start or a decision victory with no bonus points, that's no longer the case. So they now have to, Mike, decide, how aggressive do I want to be? Because now I need to win and move on, but also think, how can I become a player in the MMA community that fans want to watch? So now I'm a draw, which then they control their environment, and then ultimately they make more money down the road. And if I was sitting in front of all the fighters, which hopefully I will be one day, and telling them what I think they should think about is be as entertaining as possible and also knock guys out. Because if you win this season tournament, you no longer have to fight 4 times either. I think that was a big detriment because most fighters, no matter where they fight, Mike, 4 times in 8 months, hell, 4 times in a year is a lot. You almost never see guys do that. So now I think that's going to be the biggest positive, and guys can go out there and they can really go balls to the wall from the start because they know it's only 3 fights to win it all.
I'm not gonna be corny and make a ton of pro wrestling references, but goosebumps. If I could do the Rocks thing, I would goosebumps because you give off this vibe of Burt Watson, someone who was with Bellator for so long, and the speeches he gave to the fighters before every event. Coach, I need you doing that. I'm ready to fight somebody.
Hey, Mike, I've been telling Don and Pete that for years. The one thing that I know, and I don't want to sound cocky, arrogant, or anything like that, but you know what you know, and I know what I'm good at. And that's why I pitched them on this new role. And I said, you need a face and a leader because the fighters are always changing. And I also think the fighters need somebody like me to look at it and say, you know what? I got somebody in my corner that if I go out there and I do my job, then the promoter, being the PFL, is going to do their job. That's why I'm going to be doing all the press conferences. We're going to have a post-fight show this year. And so if a fighter goes out and he rocks it, guess who's going to be interviewing them right after the fight? We've never had that before. And that's how we're going to change the game. When I say focus on what we're doing, that's part of my job. Stay focused. But I learned from some of the best in the WWE. It's about promotion. But every big star I ever worked with, whether it's The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, whoever, they knew if they did their job, the promotion machine would then do theirs.
Absolutely. And you talked about your time with Ian Parker. I'll tell you my mindset when it comes to betting on combat sports. No matter what a fighter's skill set is, it is a fight, and anything can happen in a fight. So what was some of the biggest challenges you have in kind of, setting the tone in the combat sports betting landscape?
Yeah, that's a good question. First and foremost, Ian Parker is the best MMA handicapper out there. No offense to anybody, but let's just be honest. I found him 5 years ago on the Anik and Florian podcast. And during COVID, I said, man, this kid's pretty good. And now, look, he's the #1 guy at ESPN, and I think he can do way more than what he's doing right now. Some of and I'm here to be transparent. I'm here to be honest. And some of the challenges that we've had to address and that we will fix. And that was a lot of times the PFL lines weren't coming out from the book that we were working with for maybe a day or two. We were trying to do a betting show the week before, and you have no lines. And you have, just the very basics. On my own personal brands, I have a guy named Rafael Esparza. He's a lines maker. He's amazing. MMA is one of his specialties. So we're still in the process of lining that up. But I think what you're going to see this year is a lot more offerings, not just the straight money line. Because let's be honest, in MMA, Mike, sometimes you're going to have a mismatch. You're going to have a -600. You can't bet that. So you got to have props. You got to be able to bet by the round, overs and unders, method of victory, all of those types of things. We hope to have in place by April 3rd, because I think, as I said, we have a lot of guys behind the scenes that have been brought in, and that was a big challenge. It's hard because Ian takes his job very, very seriously, and a lot of times people will look and say, did he win or did he lose? And it's not as simple as that. So there have been challenges, but we're looking to fix those, but also that's where retaining our fighters comes in, because then we would have a history of, okay, they're 3-0, 4-0, 3 and whatever, and we'd have data, and then that will allow us to be able to do lines a lot earlier than we've done in the past. But that's definitely the betting aspect of it, Mike, is certainly very important right up there.
Well, we're less than 24 hours removed from the world reveal of the PFL World Tournament, all the brackets. We've seen the divisions, the matchups, all of that. Is there one in particular, whether it be a matchup or a bracket, that stands out and intrigues you the most?
To me, it's the middleweight bracket. I'm a huge Impa Kasanganay fan. Clearly, you agree with me very quickly, because here's a guy, and I'm big on stories. And to me, I love saying the brand within the brand. Impa is one of those guys that's a PFL guy. And one of the things that I want over the course of the next 5 to 10 years is to be able to retain our fighters and make them PFL guys. I don't want the narrative of, well, UFC released them, so we signed them, or they came from here, or they were old, so they came in. No, I want to grow our own fighters here. And Impa is one of those guys, but he was fighting in a weight class that wasn't his natural weight class. So now he's going to come down to 185. I think he's going to be fantastic. He's fighting the brother of Leon Edwards, Fabian Edwards, in a first-round matchup. So that's also a positive in this new format. There are no gimmies. There are no, hey, I can look past the first one and get to the second one. And Impa is one of those guys. Then you got Josh Silveira, who kind of came out of nowhere. He was fighting light heavyweight as well. Now he's moving down to his natural weight class of 185. Because let's be honest, in MMA, everybody knows if you're a 185er and you try to fight 205, you are usually going to get manhandled, muscled, pushed against the smart cage, all of that. And I think these two guys in particular, and don't sleep on a former champion, Sadabu C is also in the tournament this year. And I think he's one guy that if I was to sit him down, he has a style that's not super, super aggressive. I would tell someone, he would be one of my guys saying, listen, you got to start fighting more aggressively so people are talking about you the next day. But the 185ers, it's going to be hard to win that tournament this year.
Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time, so just a couple more here for you. You've had so many memorable moments in your long career. Not calling you old by any stretch, but is there one moment? I mean, I told you how the young Mike, you fell in love with, his career. Is there one moment above all else that stands out the most to you?
Man, I was flying here last night. I'm on the road to do the Players Championship, and I talk about being in boxes. And I'm so thrilled that over the course of the last several years, kind of what I've done is opened up the door for several other people to now you can do wrestling and then you can still do regular sports as well. But I learned that a lot from The Rock. And a lot of people, even to this day, man, you and The Rock. So last week at the Elimination Chamber, I traveled with John Cena for a little while, several months back in the day. We were very close at one point. I wrestled John Cena in a tables match. And to watch him turn heel, and with The Rock, who I became very close with, everything I do, my entire style, timing, forgetting the red light. I learned all that from The Rock. So to watch those two guys, and the last time they were in that building in Toronto was WrestleMania 18. And that was The Rock against Hulk Hogan. And before that match, who did the skit that everybody still talks about to this day? Me and The Rock, where I called God G, which my dad, who's a United Methodist pastor, would have killed me for. But that was one of the nights that I walked out onto the floor and I said, man, this is absolutely amazing. I can't believe that I'm here. It's only been less than 5 times, Mike, that I've walked out onto the floor to watch something with my own 2 eyes instead of staying backstage. And that was certainly one of them. And to watch those two guys who I learned so much from come full circle at the end of at least John Cena's career, it kind of got me in my feels a little bit. And I've been doing a lot of going down memory lane the last week, but that's certainly one of them.
Those two, and I do mean this, wholeheartedly, those two and yourself have mastered the art of storytelling, and that's how I'll wrap this up. I talked about all that you do between Coach and Company, Behind the Turnbuckle Studios, the Coach and the Bro, everything that we've talked about. Can you just kind of talk about the differences in those avenues? And you already mentioned the importance of not putting yourself in one department. So can you talk about the differences between all these shows?
Yeah, and I would also tell young people who are trying to make a transition or coming out of college, don't put yourself in a box. And you got to be able to talk. You got to be able to tell stories, as you said. But right now, what we put together with our own personal stuff, but incorporating PFL in it as well, we do a lot of MMA content. Everything crosses over. And anybody says that you're just this, they're being very, very short-sighted. Part of what I'm going to bring to the PFL is exactly what I bring with my own guys. We have 3 different shows right now, and we're growing. It's about entertainment. It's about storytelling. It's about making stars out of the content that you're given. If it's PFL, it's about telling these fighters, if you make yourself a star inside of the smart cage, damn it, we're going to make you a star outside of the smart cage. And that's why we started our own brands, and that's why I partnered with the PFL. And I'm telling you right now that in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to build this damn thing into a viable contender against UFC and whoever else, because we're going to build stars. And that's how you do it. And damn it, I'm going to be at the front of the line. So I appreciate the kind words today. We've got a lot of work to do.
All right. Well, I'll let you get to work. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate the time.
My man.